Hello and welcome to this week's episode of America's Voices. Joining our call today with our resident Republicans and Democrats is Kristina Irwin, running for LA City Council, and Dr. Naya Lekht, specializing in Antisemitic Studies and critical race theory. We get into two lively discussions. The first one all about teachers' unions and why 500,000 students in Los Angeles can still not return to school. We then get into a very candid discussion on critical race theory, Marxism. Is it really an issue? What kind of impact does it have on minorities across the board? Let's get into it. This year has been transformative also because of some social justice issues, which brings us to now another thing to have to consider is the new anti-racist social justice curriculum that's now being pushed into the LAUSD public schools, as well as issues like defunding the police and not having police on campus like they used to be. But we're going to focus on the former issue with an ethnic studies course because it's a big deal. And I want to say that our country is made of a whole diversity of people. Our country is beautiful because we have so much ethnicities, races, backgrounds, making it beautiful. And when I went to school, I went to a Jewish private school. I didn't go to public school, but we learned regularly about African American history, Native American history, all of that, and their plights and their strengths and what was in their way, and finding the commonalities as Jews. So it is very concerning that in this ethnic studies, does not seem to be as balanced, where every child should be made to feel safe at school. And it's very concerning what is in the ethnic studies curriculum. And I think, Naya, it's on its fifth revision because the first was just abhorrent, and third revision. And you know, I think the first revision, they didn't even include the Holocaust. But I want to just make it clear why this is a big deal and why everyone should care, because white supremacy, KKK, the number one most hated minority are the Jews. Anti-Semitism has increased by 72% in California alone. And so what is taught in the schools will have a direct effect on what's already happening now. So, Naya, if you want to just give a little bit more information, take it away.
Daniel, you know, when you introduced yourself, you said you're far left to the left. Does that make you like far right? You know, you go.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were making a joke. I was like, wait. So I'm gonna say two things today. I'm going to read a really interesting quote from Rabbi Sachs. Long ago, the Jewish people came to the conclusion that to defend a country, you need an army, but to defend a civilization, you need schools. The single most important social institution is the place where we hand our values to the next generation. And then it goes on. And the second thing I want to tell you is I could come here wearing the hat of a Jew and saying, oh my God, it's so bad for the Jews. I'm Jewish, but I'm going to come from a different perspective. My parents brought me from a former Soviet Union when I was 6 years old. So I didn't grow up in Soviet Russia, but I grew up on the stories that my parents told me on their school and Marxism. So they had regular classes, and then they had a Marxist a class on Marxism. And the problem with ethnic studies model curriculum, it's not that it's anti-Semitic. Yes, the problem is that it promotes a very narrow and very dangerous worldview, which is a Marxist worldview. Now, for many Americans, they're like, okay, like what's so bad about Marxism? It's not Nazism, right? Like, out of curiosity on this call, like how many people did Nazism kill?
Did Nazism? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like how many people were murdered because of Nazism?
9 million.
12 million.
Between 6 and 10 million or so. Okay, how many people were killed because of Marxism?
50 million, somewhere around there.
50 million people.
Okay, so 6 million deaths okay, but 50 million's bad. How about 0 dead? For an
Oh
idea?
yeah, in a perfect world, I would love to have 0 deaths. Absolutely. I would, yeah, for
You
sure.
just sacrificed 6 million for 50 million, so I'm confused.
Luckily, they got the Nazis in 4 years.
Oh,
Marxism lasted a long time.
I'm just trying to make the case that we've been absolutely correct in shunning and shining a spotlight on Nazism. Terrible. We've done a great job of that. In fact, in society today, when we see a swastika or a white supremacist parade or a KKK event, we immediately denounce. Immediately is denounced. What we haven't done well as a society is denounce what the lives that Marxism took. Just in the Soviet Union under Stalinism, they don't know yet because they haven't opened the archives, the Russians, but they estimate that just under Stalinism, we're talking about 30 to 45 million deaths. We're not talking about, they're like, oh, so people tell me, okay, it's just Russia. Well, Maoist China had a cultural revolution, millions of deaths there, North Korea, Venezuela, the East Bloc countries. So the lives that it ruins is quite dangerous. What I am trying to ring the alarm bell with the ethnic studies curriculum is that it is steeped in this Marxist ideology, which has a very narrow worldview. What is that worldview? The worldview is that we must analyze the world through what is called systems of oppression. What is systems of oppression? White versus biopic, which is Black and people of color. Male versus female, heteronormative versus LGBTQ+, West versus the Orient, rich versus poor, these power dynamics. So if you view the world through these power dynamics, what happens is that by default, anybody who's rich, white is guilty of power. How they got to that power, they don't explain. Where did the Jews fit in? Jews are successful. They are successful in America. But what happens is that this curriculum now would prime any student who graduates high school and takes this class on ethnic studies model curriculum. It primes them to take on really dangerous anti-Semitic movements then in college, racist movements, anti-American movements. It's not healthy for a society to view the world in such a way. This was the way the world, huh?
Could you give me a more concrete example then of how of exactly what's being taught and how it would lead to the end of the world?
So a few of the units, for instance, the ones that pertain to Jews, there's one, well, in the earlier version of the curriculum, they
Ignore
had,
the earlier ones, they fixed that, right?
well, they fixed that, but imagine you are in a class, and I'm telling you this because I work with teens right now.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, they're already teaching this stuff without having to pass it. And my teens are telling me that they don't want to post about Jewish things on Instagram, or they feel like they shouldn't raise their hand in the classroom because they've been told that they are white passing and that they are privileged. And they are told that their voices don't matter and that they need to only listen to one voice. That concerns me. I don't know if that doesn't concern you, but it concerns me. It concerns me that it basically, and I'm sorry that I'm reiterating, primes you to see the world as very, very black and white. Here's the thing, when Lenin came to power, he talked about systems of oppression. What were the systems? It was the monarchy. But, once you topple or dismantle, as they say right now, dismantle the monarchy, you're going to have another system. So my question, I know how it's going to play out because it plays out everywhere the same way. In China, North Korea, just extreme, Soviet Union. Once you dismantle previous unjust systems of oppression, you create new systems of oppression. You're going to have an elite body of people deciding what is best for the society. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. The Politburo. The Politburo is going to decide what's best for all of us. They're the new systems of oppression. And that's yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously the world is, you could look at, as you said, any time period and say that there's an oppressed and unoppressed group. There's minorities, majorities that are always pitted against each other so on structural, legal, political, economic divisions. I mean, the history of the world is the haves and the have-nots, where this group versus that group, the Shia versus the Sunni, the Jews versus the Arabs. I mean, you could break down any group and it'll have its foe, right?
But I don't want to promote that type of world.
Isn't that the history of the world, though?
No, it is not. It's only the way you want to see it, the world. You have to have more nuance. That's not the history of the world. The history of the world is understanding the political context.
You just told me it was the history of the world.
No, that's the Marxist point of view.
That's the Marxist point of view of the history of the world. That's what I'm telling you. Exactly. Thank you. That's the point of view of the world from the Marxist point of view. Capitalism, bad. Communism, good. Socialism, good. Socialized medicine, good. My teens, okay, you want to hear some stories? I'm telling you right now. Economics class, Agora High School. Okay, I'll tell you two stories. All right, two stories. In an economics class, the teacher put the following question to the teens. Should people in California, when they are speeding, pay a ticket commensurate with how much they make? So if you're really rich, you pay more for speeding. And the whole class decided that is absolutely, they voted that people who are rich and speed should pay more than people who are poor.
Okay. That's a nice exercise. I don't have a problem with that exercise.
But do you see that the exercise, the way that it is framed for the students, that without even have that's the world. The world is rich and poor. That now they're walking around.
They're in a class in economics, right?
Okay, how about this class in English? How about this class? I'm sorry, I think that, again, the student relayed this to me and I asked, was this at all criticized? Was there another opinion? And there was no other opinion.
But I have no problem with an economics class saying,
in
hey,
English
if people have different effects and you talk about a rate of a cost of doing something, and the cost of doing something wrong.
It's a disgusting idea. Do you not see that it is a rotten idea?
It's not disgusting at all. Look at it this way. I can happily make the argument.
It incentivizes crime. Do you not understand?
No, yeah, okay. Right. I would say that a parking ticket that a billionaire has that he has to pay $5 incentivizes him to speed because it doesn't matter to him. Okay. I mean, I think it's a fair economic.
I'm not. I just want to another student during the this is Calabasas High School in his senior class. This was in either it was history or social studies. It was right around what is the party of kindness? So the question was, what is today's party of kindness? And the answer was, in your answer, argue why the Democratic Party is today's party of kindness. So there wasn't even a choice. It was, what's today's? And then please tell us why the Democratic Party is the party of kindness.
I would report that to the school board. I have no problem saying that's wrong.
All right, I understand, but here's another, I have other examples. Why should President Trump be impeached in an English class? Hey guys, we're not gonna be talking about our literature. We're moving aside the book that we're dealing. We're gonna be talking about, write a persuasive essay on why for one reason, why he should be, not why he shouldn't. The teacher has already decided what the persuasive argument is.
Good, what does it matter? They're learning how to write.
No, because you're not teaching them, you're not teaching them how to be objective.
I just quoted to you that if you want to save a civilization, it starts in institution schools, not in the army. You are shaping the minds of people. My students do not want to say that they're Zionists anymore. They're afraid. They tell me we lost a student at Club Z because we call ourselves Club Z Zionism. I don't want to be associated, she said, with a white supremacist movement.
Yeah, it's what you're describing is indoctrination. That's what it is. And it's so subtle, and I don't think it's something that we should make light of. If you're asking a question and for instance, the Trump question, it's being framed a certain way. The question is, why should he be impeached? And they're not even given the other option. You're just indoctrinating kids to think a certain way. And I don't think that that's what education is for. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. I spent about 2 weeks working in LA Unified. I work with autistic children, right? I was Johnny Cochran Middle School. And for about 2 weeks, the 2 weeks that I was there, we spent talking about propaganda. I mean, that was like the big subject, propaganda.
Once again,
Hello?
Joel taken out. Okay.
All I'm saying is,
My battery's low.
I'm
We
not.
spent 2 weeks talking about propaganda, and they were using propaganda to teach these kids about propaganda. I mean, in other words, these are Mexican kids, and they were telling them how much Donald Trump hates Mexicans, how much he hates minorities. And this was the whole purpose of the class was trying to identify propaganda, but they're using propaganda to teach them this lesson. I mean, it's indoctrination, and they're turning these kids into political activists. Right. You don't send your kid so that they can learn how to be an activist.
Correct. And I just want to say, I'm not opposed to critical thinking and showing them a wide range of the world, which it does include Marxism. And it should be something that here's a lens to look at the world. Here's some problems with that lens. And here's another lens. Let's discuss this. Let's complicate. Let's kind of lean into the tension. That's a great educator. But here's the world. Here are these groups. And they all, think of intersectionality. All these minorities, they come together. And what is their intersection? Their moment of coming together is that they are all united under one idea. That oppression. The Jews are not, okay, I'm going to tell you right now. Yes, Daniela, you read a correct statistic. In America, Jews are, according to the ADL, the top group that is, the highest anti-Semitism rates. It's also the most successful group. We are not victims in this country. We're successful as well. And I don't want to apologize for my success of my people who have brought with them a value of education.
Well, I just want to clarify that. We are definitely victims of hate crime, but we are not internally victims.
Yeah, it's a choice. Being a victim is a choice.
Yeah. Yes.
Being segregated against is not, though, and that has happened, and it's probably still happening. But
the nuance of our language is what's gotten us in trouble for 50 years. And it's something that I have watched and watched and watched, and I've corrected people. They could be black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. And I'll give you an example. I have a friend, he's Jewish. He's a really good guy. What does that imply? That the rest of the Jews aren't? Or I have this black friend. Oh, he's a good guy, but what does that imply? Why do we do that? Morgan Freeman even said that. I'm a guy, I'm a human being. We have to get rid of the bias that's put into it by what we say. We do this, and we're doing it in schools, like you said.
Actually, yeah. Martin Luther King said he does not believe in black power or white power. He believes in human power. And to be honest, if he was alive today, I don't think he'd be woke enough for many of the progressives on the left as a leader.
Naya, one of the questions I have on this ethnic curriculum, it's up to the schools to take it in, right? It's not being mandated that every school has to teach it, correct?
So there's another bill that is on 101B or something. I don't remember the name. So ethnic studies curriculum, if let's say Governor Newsom signs it, it doesn't yet mean that it's going to be mandatory. And a second bill, if he signs, will make it mandatory. Now, activist groups, social justice activist groups, have been very smart and wily about it. They go to the school and say, look, Governor Newsom is going to adopt this. We just don't know when. Join us here. This is an amazing curriculum. It's already done for you. Use it. And a lot of schools have already been using it.
Isn't there an advantage of the one that Newsom's going through, that it's been vetted by Jewish groups? Jewish groups have, we're on the third version because they've made it better and improved it. Isn't it better to go with one that we're semi-happy with than
No, I'm not going to be happy with crumbs. I'm not happy as a Jew and as a human being. I'm not happy with the crumbs. I don't want to be in a ghetto. They're like, here, we're not going to send you to a concentration camp. We're going to put you in a ghetto. Be happy. No, I'm not happy.
I don't think that's a real fair statement.
Can we specify what is
and this isn't about Jews. Do you understand? Listen, I teach about anti-Semitism. One of the first, they say Jews are the canary in the coal mine. Do you all know what that
Yeah.
right? One of the first signs of rot and decay in a society is anti-Semitism. We should take this very seriously, that this anti-Semitism is ringing an alarm bell to something much worse in this curriculum, much worse.
But isn't the curriculum there to kind of explore that these minorities and oppressions have gone to say, to show it and kind of help cure it so that it's not perpetuated, that there are differences that we should celebrate in the ethnic curriculum?
But it doesn't celebrate the differences. That's the problem. It only
You know what, Naya?
celebrates-
I think we should be specific for David. David, do you want to hear the specific things that are still not in the curriculum that are?
No, I don't care what's not in it. I'm more cared what's in it, because it's never going to have enough. It's never going to be. I mean, it's a curriculum, so there'll be things that aren't. But I'm more concerned what's in it.
It takes the idea. Do you know critical race theory? CRT.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically informed by critical race theory.
Right.
It's not. It doesn't celebrate people's differences at all, and it doesn't it ghettoizes every single group. Only if you are this group, you can only think like this. If you are a Arab American, you will feel Islamophobia, and always. If you are a Jew, you must feel this way. And if you are LGBTQ, you must feel this way. And it just promotes group identities that are, it's just terrible. I don't want to promote this worldview.
Segregation.
Racism through anti-racism.
Right. It increases segregation.
But could it also increase understanding if done right?
No.
I haven't personally seen it done that way. Students that take classes in ethnic studies, students who come out very angry,
Yes.
are angered and are angry and want to dismantle.
This is the point.
It's genius. It's like here, it's like a factory, and here they're producing activists, revolutionaries, and it's beautiful. I gotta hand it to them. It's absolutely perfect.
I talk to them all the time, and they are the people. I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day. You can talk to a person that, well, it's hard to talk to a person that's been educated in this. They've gone to college and they've learned the critical race theory, and they're the most angry. They are the most angry, and you can't reason with them. And they want to destroy things. They want to bring down the system. You can't just have a conversation with them.
Right, they don't come out compassionate. They come out angered and ready to take the mantle, like be at the helm of destroying. It's just.
Which is ironic, right? Because, you know, the liberal progressive movement is like accepting people for who we are and inclusion and, you know, celebrating our differences. But this
I'm pretty sure ethnic studies would do that. It could be how it's done. I don't think it necessarily produces evil. I think it's how it's done. I mean, once again, Danielle, I'll put it to you, because you started off this conversation by saying, I went to a nice Jewish school and I learned about other cultures.
Yeah.
That's not what it does. That's not what this does. This isn't a multiculturalism.
But that's the starting point. I mean, to me.
Did you read the New York Times Bret Stephens op-ed this morning?
No.
About critical studies, ethnic studies? I can send it to Daniela, who can then send it to all of you.
Thank you.
If you mix all the kids in the room, black, white, pink, yellow, red, they'll all be fine. It's when we educate them to be racists.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's fair to say, yes, you could put all those kids in a room and, hey, my kids went to LAUSD magnets, which are based on a quota system, which, I mean, has its great roots from that level. And they're completely fine. That being said, if this teaches them about the Armenian plight, or gives them insight to Jews or to Muslims and gives them greater insight, I'm all for it, because they're learning it. They're doing it. And they can say how
Naya is saying is how they do it.
Right, 100%. And
You know,
I think race theory isn't necessarily a terrible way.
I
mean, that's it. That's all great to teach them about all these different cultures, all these different groups. The thing about critical race theory is that at the end of it, they're teaching them about this to point them to that intersection of oppression. And that's the thing that they're pointing to.
I'm
right?
going to quote from the curriculum, the goal of the curriculum. Students are expected to challenge racist, bigoted, discriminatory movements, not only to challenge, but to critique empires and systems of oppressions in order to create social radical movements that struggle for social justice. So in that last sentence is, the goal is to create a movement.
The movement is to make an America that gets along better, right?
No, the movement is to destroy America. That's what the
Oh.
Very
movement is.
anti-American as well. Yes, it's.
I don't read that as that. I read a movement that stops oppression for people. Isn't that a good thing?
What's the goal of the Marxist? What is the ultimate goal of a Marxist?
What's the goal of America? Prosperity and freedom. What's wrong with getting rid of
I
oppression?
don't see any freedom in this curriculum.
Yeah. How do
It's
you
only
stop
promoting
oppression
one
by
world
teaching
view.
oppression?
If I would be a student in a classroom today, I'd be terrified. If I came from, look, I was raised by Soviet parents. They tend to be more conservative politically. I would be terrified to raise my hands. My students who are in Club C, who tend to be conservative as well, they tell me they keep their mouths shut in school because they know they have to in order to get a good grade. And that's
terrible.
not the type of world I want for America.
Well, and also, I don't know if you saw the article today about parents in the very expensive private schools of Harvard, Westlake, and Brentwood, and how they are terrified to say anything that will go against the far more progressive narrative that even the kids.
This is nothing new. These are, I'm sorry, Daniela, I have to, David, I think I'm so impassioned right now because as a student of Soviet history and having, especially my interest was learning how did Lenin take over the power and reading his doctrines, Lenin Marxist doctrines, and the language that they're using, it's nothing new. And knowing how the script plays, I know how the story ends. And it ends the same way in China, Maoist China, in North Korea, in Venezuela, Eastern Bloc countries, Soviet Union, it always ends the same way.
And what are the top 5 things of the system? Authoritarian government, right? Killing of the authoritarian government, right? That's
there
key.
There is no freedom of thought. It's group thinking, and there is no freedom of thought.
So populist thought, we're controlled by the masses, right?
I'm sorry.
Maybe get rid of the freedom of press, right? I mean, what are the 5? It's a couple steps into fascism. I mean, right?
They're very similar. Did you know that Nazism is a national socialist movement? You know, Nazism.
Well, it wasn't really socialist, but yes. They called it that, but it's
far
very
right
different.
Socialist movement. The point is all totalitarian regimes, yes, have those things in common, whether they are Marxist or not. That's why I'm saying, as we should be wary of Nazism, I don't know how many of you know the history of the Soviet Union and the gulags and the re-education camps. I don't understand why you're not scared about that.
You know, I also find it funny that if you've been listening to the politicians on Capitol Hill, they're actually talking about re-educating people. Like, this is a real thing now. They're talking about this, that people need to be re-educated. That's frightening when I hear that language.
Who? Cite somebody, be real.
AOC talked about Trump re-education camps.
That's right.
Do I see a bill? Do I see a policy? Or is it a political talking point?
No, there's no bill, there's no policy, but they're talking about
so I'm not worried about it.
The conversation.
Really? Are you not worried about someone from the far right? Just if I gave you, oh, that's just far right talking. Show me the policy, the bill. Would you say the same thing?
Yes, because they've been doing it for a long time, without a doubt.
Re-education?
No, David, I'm sorry.
No.
Once they start talking about it, that's the first step to getting there.
I'm not worried about re-education of Trump voters and anything real. I'm more concerned about I don't see us suddenly going back to internment camps and worried about that. I think.
Well, why did you say Trump voters? I mean, how did that? You said no one ever mentioned re-education of Trump voters. We didn't specify a group.
I thought AOC did at that time, so I will check her quote in the context of it. But I'm 90% sure it was in relation to that.
You're right. You are correct. Yes.
Right. There you go. Because I know the news. That's how I said that. It wasn't any more interpretation than that. So
take me as an alarmist or take me as just a fearmonger here, however you want. I've studied, I've seen how these movements, what happens. I've seen the institutions of education, cultural revolutions is how it came through in China. And I mean, you could say you're not worried, and I hope you're right, and I pray I'm wrong. But I'm still gonna fight for this country.
Fight away, but I mean, we had the fear in the 60s, we had the fear in the 70s. I mean, I look at it as just a move.
Naya, I wholeheartedly agree. I've seen my children go through college, and where Marxism and socialism are not so bad to them.
No, not at all.
It's
Nobody knows how
admirable.
many people died from Marxism.
Yeah, I know. I've talked to both my son who's 26 and my daughter who's 30. I have them from 8 to 30. You know what my hobby is, obviously. And I talked to them about socialism, Marxism, and they don't have a problem with it. And they've got people like Bernie Sanders.
They probably don't have a problem with the Crusades now either, though.
Let's just stick with current, now let's not go back to caveman times. Okay. They don't seem to have a problem with socialism or Marxism at all.
Well, once again, Mark, I'll bring up, and I'll be happy, I think it's a Cato research study, if I remember correctly, that the word socialism means something completely to you than a millennial. That you're talking, it's
That's
the
the
same
problem.
word, but has a completely
yeah,
different meaning.
That's exactly the problem.
That is the
That's
problem.
part of the problem.
That's the problem.
Because
They don't know the history. You're right.
if you
You're absolutely
ask-
right. And we need to
Right.
If you ask
So
what
that's
that word
why,
means.
so what they're representing as socialism is very different than Marxism or the history, and the policies of democratic socialism are far away.
You know what?
Okay,
you know what
just
Lenin
because
did?
they're uneducated doesn't make it correct. If you
Mhm.
talk to a millennial and you ask them what is socialism, they're going to give you a vague answer like this: "Oh, it's working together. It's working for it's the people coming together."
Show me.
They don't have an answer. They have no idea what. And socialism
You
does
think
have a
what we're doing
definition.
in America has not been done
It's-
before. Lenin, one of the things that he wanted to do and was successful, he had to dismantle the police, in the Tsarist army police. He called for that. I had recently learned this. I had not even known that was one of his manifestos, was that in order to topple or dismantle the systems of oppression, he urged people on the streets that when they see a military of the Tsar, to basically attack them on the streets.
Guys, before we continue, just 1 second. Kristina does have to go get her kids to bed. So I just wanted to thank her for coming. And Kristina, was there any last thoughts you'd like to share before you go?
Vote for Kristina.
My website,
Yes.
.com. Check it out.
Good luck.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you so
here.
much,
Good
guys.
luck.
You're invited back anytime.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right,
Well-
see you later.
All I tell my children is thusly: I don't see anybody busting down the fences to get into a Marxist or socialist country, but I sure do see them busting down the fences to get in here into a democratic country. Show me one socialist or Marxist country that you'd like to live in, and then we can have a conversation.
Speaking of that, try living. You can live like a socialist in a capitalist country, but try doing the opposite. Try going to a socialist country and living like a capitalist.
Excellent
It
point.
doesn't work.
Excellent point.
Yes. So David, you're not alarmed. You see this as just ebbs and flows of what has always been. You don't see anything more alarming with the suppression of voice, and you don't think
I don't think there's suppression of voice. I think if the teachers are overleaning or propagandizing or putting their thoughts beyond an experimental thing, yes, by all means, they've crossed that line. Is it being crossed too often? Probably, but I think it's always been crossed too often. I don't think so. I look at it that I don't see it much more. I think kids are smart. They'll learn. They go in the world, and exposing them is good.
AOC, oh, sorry, I have my echo. AOC did not become AOC at home. You know that her father criticized her. AOC was packaged and manufactured in the university. People, people used to, when I used to say, when I was in college and then grad school and tell people outside of what was happening, they would have your response. They'll come out of the schools, they'll get a real job, they'll understand the way the world works, and then they'll
Naya,
issue
I have
all
no
these
problem with how
nonsensical.
AOC came out. That's the difference between us.
But I'm telling, okay, correct. It's really like, wow, but
How much you get paid,
You just kind
David?
of like slammed me there, but okay, that's fine. My point that you were saying is kids are smart, it's okay, we can do experiments on them, we can just like, experiment with this, we can experiment with that, it's okay. And I'm telling you, and when I used to go and tell a lot of people, like I'm telling you right now, what was happening in college, people would say, oh, when they get into the real world, ladies and gentlemen, the mind is made in these institutions, and they go to the outside world and they export the worldview that they've been taught and cultivated, has been cultivated for them.
The only thing
And
I'm
the
hoping
teachers now who are teaching my son that my son, my 8-year-old son, thinks he's guilty for the death of MLK. And I said, why? And he pointed and he said, because I'm white. I said, what? Why? He goes, because the man who shot him was white, so I'm guilty. We discussed this in school.
I'm not saying there shouldn't be better teachers. Daniel, you look stunned through this whole thing.
Those teachers.
Yeah, I'm
he's
baffled.
But it's not just about the teachers. The teachers are learning this from someplace.
Don't you think? That's what my point is. The teachers are. This is like a belt system in a factory. It's well-oiled machine. And that's why I began. When I began, I quoted Rabbi Sachs. If you want to save the civilization, you look at the minds of people. The schools.
I've seen
Daniel's very
people,
baffled.
Yeah. Like I said, I think AOC, hey, if she got that insight in college when she moved away, more power to her. Do I believe in everything she says? No. Do I think she's bright and well-spoken? Yeah, she is.
And she's cute too.
Irrelevant, but I think she's done pretty well for herself. Got no problem with it. I think most people who are going to college are coming out on the outside doing better and do better in life. I think that's what all the stats show. Is it leaning one way or the other? Probably, but that's also probably why some people want to go to those schools. So as long as you learn how to think and think critically, that's the goal.
Okay.
What happened
Daniel,
to
I would love to hear Daniel. He looks very baffled. I just would love to hear.
I don't blame him for being shocked by.
Is this the first time?
Daniel,
Yeah, Daniel, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
About what? What specifically? All I've heard is generalities of Marxism.
Okay.
Are all our kids screwed when they go to school these days, Daniel?
No.
Have you read Marxism?
I don't know anything about it. But I don't think I'm at risk of becoming indoctrinated or fall victim of falling into a Marxist society. But apparently you people do.
And are we
That's
just
a little scary.
loony toonies? We're like loonies, yeah?
I don't know if you're loony, but I mean, it seems a little absurd, yes.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the history of America, certainly let's go back 100 years, things are pretty much running as they've run. I mean, we've had a little bit more socialism brought in, maybe from the New Deal, maybe with this a little more civil rights and going on, but we haven't changed that. I don't think that fundamentally different from a capitalistic country with a lot of individual rights over the past 100 years. I'm sure
we're very quickly going to though.
Of course, when I can't be a fear of
I
COVID, but
agree,
you can
and
be
I
a
think
fear
from
of
anything
that.
we take from the Holocaust.
So it's all a choice, I guess, of what we want to be
100%.
afraid of.
I am far more
No,
afraid
great.
of the direction this country is headed in terms of suppression of freedoms. Oh, is our connection okay? Can you hear me okay?
Do you guys know about Barry Weiss?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm right. That's true, Mark. It's afraid is not an empowering word, but I am concerned.
Let me just, I used to be in academia.
What's that, Naya?
I used to be in academia. I used to teach in the
Oh,
university.
I think our signal is
I used to be in
going
academia.
on.
I don't know. Do you guys hear me?
Just keep going.
Yes.
Oh, I used to be in academia. I used to teach at UCLA and other universities, but mostly at UCLA. And I paid the price for my politics on Facebook and was marginalized. So I left academia. That is the way that, freedom is, you get canceled, or, oh gosh, you don't hire Naya, she's really crazy right wing. So if you know nothing about Marxism, a wonderful, very terrifying book is Arthur Koestler. He was in the Czech Republic, what was once the Czechoslovakia. Today, there is a museum to the victims of the communism. There's a digital archive. You can go there. It's called Museum of Victims to Communism. I don't know, Daniel, if you think we're being crazy here, but I am truly very terrified about where we're headed.
Communism, yeah, you should be terrified of communism, but why do you think that we're actually even anywhere near or approaching that at this point?
Because I look at language. Language is very important to me. Language is how we see the world, and how language tells us how to view the world. So if I call this a bottle and everybody agrees that this is a bottle, right? If I call this a bottle and everybody agrees that this is a bottle, right? Then but the thing is when somebody starts redefining traditional terms, redefining masculinity, femininity, redefining sex and biology, redefining the first thing you do to indoctrinate, to propaganda, is language. It's the first thing that needs to be done is language. Orwell knew it. That's what he talked about, newspeak. That's the first thing that has to happen. I don't know if you have children. My child is only 8, but I do, my professional children are teens. The way they speak, the language they use, it's like we speak very different languages. My generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers, they have a very different worldview, and they are primed.
And what's wrong with that?
Because their worldview is...
Why must their worldview match yours?
Oh, it doesn't have to be matched mine, but I'm watching their worldview.
So it's different. That was agitating to you, but so now you have to say it's the same. Which one is it?
No. But I'm saying that their worldview and the language that they use, I see it, as I was telling you today earlier, everyone, I see it a very dangerous path of not pluralism and not freedom of thought, but rather ghettoization of thought, of freedom of thought, the opposite.
See, to me, this is just cyclical. I think about the 50s and rock and roll, when that was going to ruin the bodies, and Elvis couldn't be shown on TV because it was going to lead to riots, right? I mean, isn't it?
No.
No, it's one generation not understanding the next.
Getting less valid.
Here's why I am not afraid at all. Our political system moves fairly slowly. And I think once they introduce some, let's call it Bernie Sanders social ideas, so it's not mired in communism or Marxism. Let's just use that. And it's not.
Yeah, that seems more appropriate.
Okay. And I'm not degrading Bernie Sanders when I say that. Okay. I think if we move on a few of those ideas, we as a people, our children too, will be smart enough to realize if this was a right move or a wrong move and correct it. We don't know. We haven't done any of the policies of like a Bernie Sanders.
Well, let's remember when what was it, Medicare or malpractice? Medicare was brought in. Reagan was big on the airwave saying that was, we're going to be socialist and lose our freedoms.
Yeah, so socialized medicine, England and Canada, are they all communists now?
We as a people will figure it out. Our children will figure it out, and they'll stop with their voting any communism or socialism. At least I hope they will. I pray they will. And we try to educate our children to be good critical thinkers, whether or not the university.
We're not. That's the problem.
Whether or not the university turns out dumbasses.
Yeah.
Mental responsibility.
Nobody laughed, but okay.
Comes back to the family. Good roots with the family.
It does. And we can agree on that. It does come back to the family.
To educate my children. It is up to me to teach them to be critical thinkers. School can give them information, but I have to teach them critical thinking and brainwash them the way I want them to think. Isn't that what we do as parents? Come on, we do.
We have to screw them up somehow.
Exactly. Exactly.
We are all imperfect.
I told my daughter one day, I told my daughter, there was no manual attached to your ass when you came out, so I am doing the best I can do, and I hope I'm batting over 500.
Just write it down and we'll be in therapy, right?
Exactly. We'll be in therapy because I won't. It's okay. I make mistakes.
Yeah.
So I will leave you. I have to leave shortly, but I want to say one thing, Danielle, you screwed up my whole week. I found out today, after reading the article about the Jews, that my wife is of Moroccan descent and she's darker skinned, and I am a white Jew, and because of that, I have to apologize to her, and I have white Jewish privilege.
But she doesn't have it because she's darker.
She's darker, but the problem is I've been apologizing to her since we're married 13 years.
Now you have one more thing.
I don't know if I have anything to make up for.
Just do better, Mark. Just do better.
Yeah, I gotta just do better. Like Maya Angelou said, to know better.
That's all we can do. Better. Yes. Okay. So let's just go around and have a final statement. David, would you like to go next?
I'm going to go off topic and onto the website. I think what we say, hey, what are American voices and what are, critical things that people want to talk about and think about. And I think at some point, some of these are real and some of these were just puppeting the latest outrage that are really just bullshit on the side. And that I'm glad today we kind of got into some real stuff about unions and ethnic groups, because I think these are more real than a fake concern. I hope, Naya, you don't feel that I belittled it in any way. But these are good debates on how to put things in effect, and we could judge the fear or not fear, but at least it's not contrived for political appointedness.
Right. Great.
I do think we didn't start the topic tonight, was unions. I think that's a great topic to discuss. Gun control, things of that nature.
Okay. For future calls. Naya, what about you?
Well, I came in very last minute.
Thank you for being a good sport.
Thanks so much. I don't, I'm not here as one person, as a Jew or I'm just here as a human being, but I urge everyone on this call who hasn't learned about the Soviet Union to learn about how it didn't come like this. It's not like they started with gulags and re-education camps. It started with professional revolutionaries on the street. So Lenin knew it. Lenin knew that in order to hasten the revolution, he said, people won't march on the streets. We have to create professional revolutionaries, paid. And so he paid professionals and he created the proletariat. They didn't have a proletariat in Russia. He created that class in order to rise up against the wealthy. Smart, brilliant man. So I urge everyone to read a little bit about what communism does to a society.
Hey, do you have a good book that you'd recommend?
Gosh, I'm looking at my, one of the best books. It's a thin book by my professor. He used to be my professor, Peter Kennes, A Short History of the Soviet Union, it's called. It's a very concise little book, a short history, and he really details, really interesting, how the Soviets dismantled, in today's terms, the previous regime in order to put on a new regime. And lest you all think that now we're going to all sing Kumbaya and dismantle these oppressive regimes and now have this like kumbaya moment, there's going to be a new regime that's going to come. This is just how it works.
That's true.
What was it called again? A short history of
The Soviet Union by Peter Keynes, K-E-N-E-S-Z. Keynes.
Well, I hate to interrupt, but my battery is about to die.
Okay,
So I just wanted to say, Naya, I thought you were excellent tonight. I thought you had a lot of good things to say. A lot of people don't know about communism, socialism, and critical race theory, and how it's infiltrating our, not just the schools, just inside society in general. So good on you for breaking that down. And just wanted to say it was fun tonight. I thought this was one of the best discussions that we've had. And before my phone dies, that's pretty much all
I already found you on Facebook. So friend.
Yeah, I saw your request. Thank you. I'll respond to that.
Awesome. Well, Joel, thank you so much for being here. You always add so much. We will see you next time.
The book I'm reading now, David, you might find interesting. It's The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
Okay.
Okay. Daniel, would you like to say something?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Well, I appreciate these calls.
Daniel, did you enjoy your comedy hour?
Yeah, that was eye-opening for sure.
Okay, good. So it was worth it. I'm happy for that. I like these calls because whether or not we change our views, there's always something to learn. There's always a new perspective to gain. And I agree with the sentiment about what Mark is saying. I want to focus what I want more of, not what I want less of. And being able to have my where they are free to be free thinkers is very important to me, and that's what I will continue to try to perpetuate as best I can, because our country is the strongest when we have a bunch of free thinkers who can share. So with that said, thank you all for coming. And if you're not already, I think all of you are. I don't know about you, Naya, but I have America's Voices public group. So we have conversations there, and some of the themes of that week are carried over into these weekly calls. And if you have another topic or another idea for a future show, and like David said, it's not about getting stuck in the politics, because then it becomes a defense offense scenario. It's more about the issues at hand that we can both have something to say on together. So with that said, have a lovely evening, and until next week.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, God bless, and God bless America. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of America's Voices. If you too would like to join in the conversation, find us on Facebook. The group is America's Voices. Be a part of the conversation. If you would like to be a part of a future episode, visit daniellabloom.com/America's Voices. We would love to have you. God bless you, and God bless America.